Hey folks, Troy here. There are YouTube reviewers who specialize in newer pens, and I've seen some guys who specialize in older or vintage pens. Personally, I like them both. I've got new pens that I absolutely love, some not so much. I've got vintage pens that I absolutely love, some not so much. Every so often, I like to add to my collection something new, something old. No, not something borrowed and something blue. But I do enjoy classic American fountain pens. You know, of course, foreign ones too. But I have a great appreciation for pens of a great heritage. And Sheaffer is one of those names. Sheaffer's been around a long time, the W.A. Sheaffer Company, and I've enjoyed a lot of their pens. Behind me, you know, I kind of move stuff around in my office a little bit so you can't really see it, but behind me there's a big old pen case full of different brands, and Sheaffer, I've got a good many Sheaffers that I really enjoy. There are people out there who have websites that are pretty much dedicated to Sheaffer, and I'm going to share with you some pictures and some statistics today. And penhero.com. You're based out of Raleigh, North Carolina, which is only about 35 miles from where I'm sitting. Jim does a great job of gathering pictures, and he's really kind of a Sheaffer aficionado. So if you look at his website, you're going to find some great resources. Also, vintagepens.com, and if you Google Raven's March pens, you'll find some good information, as well as, of course, Richard Binder's website, if you want to look at his reference pages. But most of the pictures and stuff I'm going to share with you, and I'm admitting unashamedly that I scavenged pictures for this video from some of these websites. So what I want to share with you today is a review of a classic pen, and you can still get these. You can find these right here. Just recently, well, I say not recently, but not too long ago, I shared with you an unboxing or a pen mail day in which I ended up getting a vintage Sheaffer Imperial II Deluxe. It was new old stock. I ended up getting it and unknowingly from Patent Street Pens, patentstreetpens.com, but they also sell on eBay, and it's not listed as Patent Street Pens. I didn't know that till I sent them a payment that went to Patent Street Pens, and that in the box I got it said Patent Street Pens. I was like, oh, cool. Well, you know, I've seen their website many times. I just didn't know that's who I was buying from on eBay. So this was a new old stock. I did a little bit of research on the Sheaffer Imperial II. Sheaffer Imperials came out from 1961 to 1976. Another website, however, said 1964 to 1972. So apparently the historical record is a little off depending upon who you ask. And this has a Triumph style nib. Now Triumph nibs you can find online went from about 1942 to 1998, and what I was told, or from what I read, the short clips like this with the white dot, of course white dot going to be fairly typical with Sheaffers, that was towards the end of the run. So originally I was thinking this pen may have been from like the 1960s maybe. Well, it turns out that this may be actually towards the end of the run of manufacturing in the Sheaffer Imperial II. So this could be from new old stock from the 1970s, which would put this pen, let's see, 41, 42 years old at a minimum. And when I got it, it worked great. So, just a little bit of basic information. If you're familiar with a Sheaffer snorkel, it operates much like a Sheaffer snorkel, just without the snorkel. So, it's the same touchdown style filling system. I'm not going to show you the filling system right now because I have this full of ink and I don't want to squirt ink everywhere. But when I did my pen mail, I shared with you this. Let's go ahead and look at the touchdown filling system. You pull this back and listen. You hear that? Okay, that's the touchdown filling system. You would put it down in ink and you would pull up and press down, and you would allow it to expel air or ink if ink was in there, and it would suck it back up. So this particular pen, I really rather enjoy it. I mean, it's like 13.5 centimeters long. It doesn't weigh very much. It's only 0.65 ounces or about 19 grams. I'll share all that with you here in just a little bit. But you can still see it's got the sticker, but it's quite faded. So when it was new old stock, it probably, when it was new stock, it probably had, a sticker here that told you that it was a medium nib, and maybe even had the price that was on it. So I did order the medium nib. You can get these for about $50 or so online. I paid a little bit extra, like $5 extra, instead of getting the fine nib, to go ahead and get a medium nib, just because I prefer mediums, and I've already got a Sheaffer fine. I didn't have a Sheaffer vintage pen in a medium nib, so I wanted to see how the medium nib wrote compared to, let's say, this one here, which is my Sheaffer Snorkel. This one here being a fine nib. I wanted to see how the medium nib wrote by comparison, because the fine nib actually wrote fairly well. So this one here being the medium, now that you're going to see all the difference, but I'll put up some pictures of all this stuff. Yeah, I even just inked myself. Cool. So I expect quality when I see the name Sheaffer, and when I see something that it's going to be an old, reliable pen, the venerable pen, I expect it to be able to write well, and it did. So this particular pen, it's got the gray, the dark gray, and the silver cap. It's one of the things about Sheaffer that I always found kind of odd. They like to have silver caps or gold caps, and caps that are different color from the body of the pen. That I don't understand necessarily, but I guess that was kind of the style that they kind of liked. Alright, so you've got your conical style grip. So, I mean, this literally is shaped like a cone. So it tapers down and perfectly round. I don't find that uncomfortable. A lot of people, number one, don't like smooth sections or grips. I don't mind that so much. It doesn't bother me. I'm one of those where I'll adapt to what the pen has. I don't mind triangular grips. I don't mind rubberized. I don't mind metal grips. I don't mind plastic grips. I don't mind ones that flare up. I don't mind ones that are textured. I pretty much grab a pen, use it, and go with how it's designed. So I'm not as picky. There's some pens that are easier to write with than others, especially for long-term use. But this pen holds, as far as I'm concerned, nicely in the hand, and it writes well, which was what I really demand out of a fountain pen. So you've got that nice little taper down here to the Triumph style nib, and then you've got, it's pretty, most of the pen, it's smooth. Then you've got the, I'm gonna go so far as to unscrew it, but I'm not gonna pump it. So this is where you would have your cap, where you would pull out the plunger and push it back in, but I'm not going to do that. And it kind of tapers down on the end, and it's got kind of a quad at the end, so it's like a quad taper to a quad facet kind of get that thing, So it posts very nicely, holds nicely in the hand. It backweights it just a little bit with that metal cap being on the end, but overall it's still not too heavy. So me, being one who can really appreciate pens like this, I've been using this a lot since I bought it. I've had it inked up. Hopefully it won't run out of ink when I go to do a writing sample here for you in just a little bit. But when you get a pen that's like from between the 60s and the 70s, and when you can find one, and like I said, you can still find them out there, especially at Peyton Street, whether you find them on eBay or whether you go to their website, you're going to find new old stock still available, which means that the ink sac is still going to be available, or still going to be nice and pliable and usable, because it hadn't been inked up. It hadn't sat and crumbled and decayed over time, hopefully for you. And this one was in perfect working order. You're going to be able to enjoy yourself a nice, vintage, classic looking, I think rather stylish. Now granted, I'm not a big fan of the style of the short clip. I do kind of like longer clips. My understanding, though, is that was often designed for the concept of military or uniform use, to be able to have that short clip to go in the pocket, because you got the flap, and that would completely cover the clip on the pen, so the clip wouldn't be visible. But when you can get a nice pen like that, added to your collection at a reasonable price that works very well, and it works as well today as the day it was manufactured, then I'd say that's a pretty good pen day. Okay, now that we've retired over to the Rhodia dot pad, and wanted to share with you about the Sheaffer Imperial II Deluxe. You can see it says right along here at the cap, it does say Sheaffer, made in USA along the edge of the cap. Along here it says made in USA on the pen itself. It doesn't have the typical W.A. Sheaffer stuff that you'd see on some of their older pens along, let's say, the side, but just the made in USA and Sheaffer along both the pen itself here and along the cap. And again, that was the stock sticker that came with it that just kind of is old and faded. And of course you've got the clip, short clip with the white dot. So that is a Sheaffer Imperial II. Just for grins, yeah, I know that's not an original cap to this particular pen, but matter of fact, here's some of the, on my snorkel, you can see the writing that's right here, that's engraved into the pen. That's how it compares to a snorkel. Other pens to compare it to, Waterman Karen, which is a little dust on that thing. Let's go with a Visconti Van Gogh in the irises. So you can see the size comparison there. An Esterbrook J. Let's throw in up here a Pilot Metropolitan, so you can see the size comparison there. It's about the same size as the Sheaffer. Very comparable. And let's throw one more pen in here just for grins. Some of you may, in the lower end market, know that about the Jinhao 450. So just wanted to give those for a size comparison. Move these out of the way. Like I said, I spent a few extra dollars, like $5 extra compared to the price for the fine nib. I went ahead and got a medium nib on mine. So this is the Sheaffer Imperial II. So this could be circa early 70s, possibly, don't know for sure, but that's about when, if it's new old stock towards the end of the run, that could very well possibly be. So it's got the medium Triumph nib. Let's see, what else can I tell you about it? It has the touchdown filling system. Let's see, I put into this thing some Waterman ink. This is a Waterman Serenity Blue. From what I understand and from what I've been told by experts, it is Waterman inks tend to be one brand that is very gentle on vintage pens. So I like Waterman. I'm a Waterman fan. I've gone through several bottles of Waterman ink. This particular Serenity Blue is one of my favorites, so I tend to use it. So this particular steel nib, let's see what kind of writing we can do with it. You can get some good thick dark lines. I don't expect a lot of flex, because if you see, you've got on the back side of this nib, you can see where the feed and the steel and how that's shaped. I don't expect a lot of flex out of this thing. But you can get a little bit of line variation. It writes very well in any direction that you choose to go. But again, you're not going to get a lot of line variation out of it. It's a writing machine because it was designed to write, not necessarily to flex, not necessarily to do a lot of tricks. It was this was, from what I understand, certainly not the top end pen of theirs, and it was designed just to be a good, reliable, smooth writer, and that's exactly what it is. So just for grins, can we do any reverse writing with it? You certainly can, and you can get a very fine line doing that with this. So anyway, if you're looking for a good, decent, smooth writing pen that's vintage, if you can find new old stock at a reasonable price, like I said, this was going for somewhere around $50. You can find them even less if you want to settle for a fine nib, which were produced in much more, from what I understand, greater quantity than was the medium nib. You may actually be able to get a nice, decent addition to your collection, a nice vintage pen from a venerable name like Sheaffer, back when Sheaffer really actually was into making quality pens. So.